Okay, well, welcome back from lunch. How are we doing on the audio there? We good on audio?
Yeah, look good.
Excellent. This next chapter, by the way, if you want a copy of the slides, let me know. I'm happy to share that with you. So you can just simply email me at elfcisco@earthlink.net, and I'll just send you those. Or you can ask me to put them on the laptop if you want to grab a laptop from us. Start studying from that. In this next chapter, we're going to take a look at understanding some of the different types of attacks that we have. We're going to take a look at how we categorize the attackers. We're going to look at some social engineering. We're going to look at some of the network attacks, some application attacks, and we'll talk about some of the malwares that are out there. So this first module talks about understanding the attackers, and we're going to look at how to categorize these guys by their motivation and then categorize the attackers by their threat characteristics. If we think about the types of hackers that are out there, there's actually a whole bunch of different types of hackers, but when you think about the difference between a hacker and a cracker, what's the difference? Now, I grew up in the South in the 60s. I was a cracker. At least I was called that by a lot of people. I was down in Mexico. I was called a gringo. I was over in Hawaii. They called me a heole or a haole. Well, heole is the Hawaiian pronunciation. What does haole mean? Actually, it's meaning with no breath. King Kamehameha, when he met Captain Cook, asked him, what is your hay? What is your breath? Where did your breath come from? What is your ancestry? Can you tell me who your father was, who your father's father, and how far back can you go in your generations? Because, of course, the Hawaiian language was all done verbally. So he turned to Captain Cook and went, you have no hay. You are basically without hay, so heole was the term that came out of that. So he was white, so that's probably why people look at that, go, it's the white man coming over to steal something again. So yeah, that could be what it is. So you start looking at the black hat versus white hat. The black hat is going to be your cracker, whereas the hacker is generally considered ethical because you've got permission to do this. When you get permission to hack, then you become a white hat hacker, a security expert who's studying and practicing hacking, but uses it for legal purposes to find all the vulnerabilities in your network. Because we want to find your vulnerabilities. We then take that list to upper management. We say, here's where the holes in our network. Here are some of the ways that we can mitigate those vulnerabilities. We give the list to them because they're the ones who get to spend the money and figure out how to do this. We can only offer suggestions. So that's basically what we do as a white hat. As a black hat, we are criminal hackers who break in for personal gain or malicious purposes. I'm going in to steal money out of your bank. I'm going in to steal, whatever I can from your business. Could be that you've come out with a new platform for routers and you've got the operating system in-house. I want to go see what you have, so I'm going to go steal that. So that might be one of the reasons I do this. Gray hat, hackers who are neither really black hats nor white hats, it actually depends on who's paying them the most. If you're paying me in-house to block somebody, then I'm a white hat. If you're the competitors, I'm a black hat working for you to go steal something from somebody else's company. So it just depends on who's paying you the most. Some of the attacker qualities, what is the intent? Why is somebody coming in? Are we going in to steal something? Are we going in to destroy something? Are we just going in for a look-see? What is the sophistication? If you are a hacker, you should have a lot of certifications underneath your belt, or at least some experience with Windows, Linux, Unix, and all of those. We think about the resources that we have. Some attackers are groups working in common cause. We start thinking about those threat agents that are out there. Countries such as North Korea, where they've got a whole bunch of hackers that are trying to get into our system, trying to disrupt things going on in our country. Very easy to do things like that and blame it on someone else. I can launch an attack right here, and I can go after your system, and I can launch this over through Europe. I can go through the Netherlands. I can come down to England. I can go over to France, back up to Germany, over to Belgium, back over into the Middle East through Bahrain and the Saudi Arabia. Then I can jump over into Turkey and then launch up through Russia several times, come back to the Ukraine, go back to Russia a few more times, and then launch the attack against you. And you're going to look at this and go, I've been attacked by Russia. No, it was your friendly next door neighbor who launched the attack, but it appears to come from Russia. When you start tracking it back, you say it goes to Russia, to Russia, to Russia, to Russia, to the Ukraine, back to Russia, 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 and you're not going to get Russia to help you. Why? Because it's tenuous at best that you can even figure out that it came from Russia. So this is one of those things where you start linking these attacks together through, basically it's called proxy chaining. So if you jumped out on Google right now and typed in free proxy chaining, you would find 1 million hits and all this different software. And when you list out the software, it's going to show me all the different country flags of where I'm going, so I can simply sit there and go, I want to go to this place first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. You can list out 100 places within 2 minutes, say let's attack in this order. And it appears at the very bottom, this is where the attack is coming from. So it could be your next door neighbor that you're attacking. Location, some attackers require physical proximity while others can be conducted anywhere in the world. If you have a computer system and you've got the knowledge, you can launch an attack against anybody. Target information, some attackers might know little about your organization while others might have some critical information about where they want to go in your network and what they want to be able to find. Many times the attackers out there are script kiddies. These are kids that find the tools online, or they talk to their friends, and then, here's the best part, they go on YouTube to find out what? How to launch the tool. It's one of the best places to go to find out how to do anything. I've tried my darndest to play guitar for the last 45 years, and if I want to learn how to play a song, I just go out to YouTube and they show me how to do this, and 2 days later I forget how to do this. I think I used a whole box of metal floss, and there's nothing there. So, it's like I keep trying to play this, going, God, what's going on with this? Hacktivists, these are people who launch the attack for a political or ideological means or message. Could be organized crime. This is one of the biggest attacks nowadays, is that organized crime is getting in on this because they see a lot of money, especially with ransomware. Could be your competitors. They want to find out what your new products are. Could be my insiders. It could be employees or former employees who want to they have a grudge against us, or they want to launch an attack against us. So this might be why they're coming in. Could be that nation state looking to do some cyber warfare. The biggest concern that we have is something called APT, the Advanced Persistent Threat. When you take a look at some of these countries out there, they keep launching this series of attack after attack after attack. They are looking for the crease in our armor. They're going to keep attacking till they find that one little spot where you have not secured it. They're going to slide right in, and now they're in your network. So this is one of the concerns that we always have. Okay, so we got some questions here. What category of attacker is defined by their limited sophistication and reliance on prepackaged tools? Those are my script kiddies. What kind of attacker is the advanced persistent threat most commonly associated with? The nation states, you are correct, yes. What category of attacker might also be called a cyber terrorist? So this is going to be my hacktivist, yes. So this next module talks about social engineering. We'll talk about why it's so effective. We'll talk about impersonation. We'll talk about phishing and spamming. We'll talk about social engineering and how it can violate your physical security and how to minimize the risk of social engineering attacks. Many times the social engineering works because you are pretending to be someone else. You might be pretending to be a person in a position of authority. You can alter your voice and call up the help desk and say, this is the CEO. I need this file. I need it right away. Or I've just forgotten my password. I need to get in. I'm in the middle of a presentation to the board of directors. I need to get in now. So you need to send me a new password. And that's using your authority to get somebody to actually send that to you immediately. It could be intimidation. give me your password, or I'll bring down your network or whatever, something like that. Could be consensus or social proof in that, hey, everybody else is doing this, let's go ahead and launch this attack like everybody else. Could be scarcity. You see this on TV all the time. We have 2 of these left. Be one of the last people, or the first people in your neighborhood to get this, but we got 2 left. Oh, we're down to 1. We're down to 1. Who wants this last one? Go ahead and call us. So, yeah, this is one of the things that they use on TV. Urgency. You got to get this right away. I mean, if you don't get this antivirus right now, the one I love the fact that they use this one on TV. Is your computer running slow? Have you seen this ad on TV? Just go ahead and connect into our website here, www.willtakeadvantageofyou.com, and we'll go ahead and fix your computer. Why do they want you to connect to their website? The moment you connect to them, what are they going to do? They're going to turn around, push some software down to you, check out your system. When you say, yes, we can go ahead and do this, what are they putting on your system? Some sort of remote access so they can get into your system any time they want. Could they be putting spyware on my system? Which means they can record any of my keystrokes, any of my screenshots, and they can send this out. So anytime I go out to my bank, do they have copies of my username and password? Absolutely. So you always have to be very careful and cautious of that. Another thing that they use in social engineering circles, and this is one that really scares me because of my nieces took advantage of this. Some companies use the word free. Not free. But how would you like a free copy of your credit report? What's the name of the company? CreditKarma.com. If you connect into Credit Karma, because they're going to give you a free copy of your credit score, what are they going to ask you for when I give you this? Social Security, what else? Name, date of birth, address. All the PII we never want to give away to anyone. We are freely ourselves giving it to them. Why? So I can get a number which I could have gotten free anyway by going to Equifax, Experian, or TransUnion. Once a year, you're allowed a free credit report from any one of those. So you could go over January 1st to the first place. You could wait until April 1st for the next place. You could go July 1st for the next one, or actually August 1st. Do it every 4 months, and you're getting 3 free reports per year. When you're back to January 1st, go back to Equifax and get it again. So you don't need to go out to Credit Karma. I remember sitting there with my niece who just got married, and we're having dinner, and she's like, I got to check something. I said, what are you checking? She goes, I'm checking my credit score again. I said, when did you check it last? She goes, 2 hours ago. Okay, your credit score does not change within 2 hours. It won't even change within 2 months most times. It changes from 6 months to 6 months out. So she's like, oh, okay. Let me check it again. Okay, then, if you really need to look at it. So we start looking at that urgency. I got to get this. I got to go there. Familiarity, liking. This would be one of the social engineering things. Oh, you like this. Let's go ahead and send you information. You go and open that link, and they got you. Many times when you open up something on your computer, that's when they have you, because they've now pushed some software out to you. Trust is a big thing, because if I can get you to trust me, then you'll open up the software that I've sent you. What is a phishing attack? We're going to send you an email, and we want you to open up this email. Anybody here ever bought anything on eBay and used PayPal? Did you get the notification from them that said that your account was no longer valid and that you had to change your credit card, and or did you respond to that? Why not?
I went to PayPal's own website and logged in from there.
And everything was okay? So there's a reporter out there by the name of John Stossel, and John has done some great work in the past. So John was out in Russia, and he found the guy that sends these emails out. He said, John says, how many emails do you send out on any given day? Anybody want to take a shot at that one?
15,000.
Try 250,000. He has a whole room full of people sending out emails. What percentage of people answer this? 5%, 10%, or 20%? 10% of the people answer this. So 25,000 people are saying, here's my credit card number. Here's my bank account number. What are they going to do with that over in Russia? Cha-ching. So John asks him, he says, how much money do you make on any given day? He says, I average $1 million take home a day. He said, how long have you been doing this? He said, 9.5 years. John goes, you made some pretty good money. He says, oh, well, I've made a boatload of money. He says, I've made over $1 billion. He says, well, why do you keep doing it? He says, because people are willing to give me their money, and I'm happy to take it. He said, I noticed in your garage you got a couple of Ferraris and a couple Lotuses down there. He goes, yeah, I need about 6 more vehicles, and I'll be good to go. He says, you'll notice they all have this powder color, because I like the powder colors, powder pink, powder blue, and powder yellow. And he says, I'm hoping to get the rainbow collection for all my different cars. Turns out about 3 weeks after that, the guy was shot in Russia because somebody saw him driving around in his powder Lotus and saw the article and went, that guy took my money. Boom, boom. And I got to take it anymore. But, you got to realize that there's people out there. There's another great fishing one that's out there. Not that I'm trying to give you guys any ideas. I'm just trying to give you something to look for should somebody send you this. One of them comes from FedEx. Hey, congratulations. No, they don't say congratulations. Dear customer, we received a package that was destined for you. We don't have a current address. Apparently, you won a laptop in some conference that you went to and they had no current address. We're sitting on it right now. We have an old address. You have 2 ways you can get this. You can dial the 800 number, or you can click on the link below, and then we'll just get your address and information. We can send it to you. What percentage of people click on the link? 99%. Why?
Free.
You didn't even think about it. Oh, a laptop. And it's an Apple, whatever, flat book, whatever it weighs. I have no idea what they're called nowadays, what the new ones are called. But, people go, oh, gee, I can get that for my son or my daughter, whatever, and they just aren't thinking about this. When I was talking a moment ago about fixing your computer, you think about the target audience. The target audience is going to be your older folks. It's going to be, people my age and older. Why? Because apparently we have money. I keep looking at my bank going, I'm supposed to have money? Where the hell is it? I don't have any money. The IRS has my money. Do they ever want to give it back? No. I got the greatest call, or a letter from the IRS asking to call. So I called them up and I said, what's going on? And they said, there's a discrepancy going on with some of your receipts. I said, okay, so I sent those 2 weeks ago. What's the discrepancy? And the kid that I'm talking to just graduated from Princeton in business administration. So he's now working for the IRS. Really? This is the only job you could get? And he says, okay, I got your bill sitting here. And he says, I notice here on July 13th, which is a Friday, you stayed in Guam at a hotel. I said, I did. He said, but I also have another receipt that says on Friday, July 13th, you stayed in Honolulu. How could you stay in Guam and Honolulu on the same day? What's that? Yes. And he goes, this is impossible, so I think you are scamming us. I said, do you see the ticket that's attached to both of those receipts? He goes, yeah, it's right here. I said, when did I leave Guam? He goes, Saturday morning. When did I arrive in Honolulu? He says, Friday night. And then he says, how the hell did you do that? And you're working on my taxes. Oh my God, really? So his boss is listening in because he's a new guy. His boss says, this is the manager over at the IRS. I'm listening in on the conversation. Let me take a moment to explain to our young worker about the international date line. So the boss comes back on. He goes, Eric, you're good to go. We're not going to audit you. Whew. He goes, but the kid's got another question for you. I'm like, okay, what do you got? And he says, so let me get this straight. When it's Friday here, it's Saturday in Guam. I said, yes, it is. He said, so I could call you when you're in Guam and you could tell me the winning lottery numbers for Friday night's pull.
You said you went to Princeton?
Yes.
What community college is that?
Oh, it's right next to MIT. No, I have no idea where the...
What's wrong with Jersey? Okay.
What's wrong with Jersey? Nothing, actually. That's Princeton's a very nice school. Okay, so we have a couple other fishing varieties out there, and you need to know these for the test. So you got spearfishing. So spearfishing is targeting specific users. Spearfishing could be going after the upper management team, whereas whaling is singling out one person. So I might be going after the CEO, and that would be whaling. But if I'm going after the upper management team, that would be spearfishing. Now, vishing is applying fishing techniques over the phone. So it's voice fishing is what we're doing. We're doing the exact same thing that we would have done had we gone over the phone lines. So spearfishing is going after a specific group of users, whereas whaling is singling out a high-profile individual. The way to think about whaling is over in Vegas, they talk about the whales coming in. They're talking about the very, very rich people that fly in their Learjet and fly out in their Cessna. Why? Because they lost all their money at the casino, which does happen. Or they fly in with their Cessna and fly out in their Learjet, which can also happen in the casino, but not very often. So vishing, again, is coming in over the voice systems that we have. So physical intrusion, one of the biggest concerns that we have is shoulder surfing. People looking over your shoulder while you're typing, so we're basically doing an eavesdropping. We could also be watching what you're typing, so we can sit there and watch. I always love it when I am sitting in the plane because I always like the window seat. And if I've got 3 seats in front of me, I can usually see between the armrest of the person in front of me and the person who's sitting in the center. I can watch how they put their password onto their phone. And I can sit there and actually read what they're doing on their phone. So sometimes it's just great entertainment for me. But I mean, sometimes I'm not doing it maliciously. I can see it, and people don't think about that. So people behind you can actually see what you are doing. Tailgating and piggybacking, tagging behind somebody into a secure area. I was just at the airport. The pilot comes over to walk the outside of his plane. He swipes his card, he puts in his PIN, the door opens, he steps out. As the door is beginning to close, his first officer goes and sticks his hand in there, and this is what happened. It cut off his finger just like mine. No, I'm kidding. That's not what happened. This is a table saw accident. Don't try to trim your fingernail with a table saw because it hurts like hell. So the first officer went and stuck his hand in there, and the pilot stopped him and said what to him? You need to go back over, swipe your card, and put your PIN in. You can't come out. There are 3 security entities at the airport. What are the 3 security entities? Who handles security for the passengers? TSA. Who handles security for the plane? FAA. Air Marshal works for the FAA. Who handles the security for the airport? The airport police. They have usually their own police department. Whenever a pilot or co-pilot steps out on the tarmac, they swipe their card, put in their PIN, which says, I'm going to the tarmac. Add my name to the list of people on the tarmac. When they come back in, they swipe their card, put in their PIN. It removes them from that list because anytime they've had an accident on the tarmac, they need to know who's on the tarmac at that moment in time because they want to account for everybody who is there. So when we take a look at the tailgating and piggybacking, that's really what we're doing is we want to make sure that people always swipe before going in. Now my question to you is this for dumpster diving. Is it legal to dumpster dive? What would make it legal? Where must the dumpster be sitting? In a public place. So my parents' house is in an association. When I put my trash cans out on the street, is at a public street. Because when you enter the association, it says this is private property. Does that mean somebody could still go through my trash can?
Yes.
I don't know the answer to that. It's still questionable to me. Now, there's a lawsuit right now going on in California with Waste Management. Waste Management is saying that when their barrels or their big Dipsy dumpsters get pushed out on the street, does the trash belong to Waste Management, or can anybody go through that Dipsy dumpster? And this is what is being argued in court. On the outside of the barrel, it says property of Waste Management. Interpretation of what that says becomes the issue. Does the sign on the outside of the cart or the Dipsy dumpster mean that the Dipsy dumpster and the contents belong to Waste Management? Or is it just the container belongs to Waste Management? And this has been sitting in front of the State Supreme Court in California for the last 3 years. They have yet to rule on it because they just look at it and think it's a bunch of trash. So they don't care. The reason that Waste Management is thinking about this is because they're losing over $1 million per day because people are stealing things out of the trash. What they're stealing is things that are recyclable that residents and businesses don't put in the recycle bins. So someone's getting in there and taking out the bottles and taking out the plastic and all that other stuff that's being recycled. So right now as it stands, dumpster diving is legal. You can do that in every state. When we think about some of the defenses for social engineering, the individual who is most at risk about being socially engineered are the people who are facing the public. Who would that be? It's going to be a combination of your receptionists or the people that answer the phone, because these are the ones who are talking and seeing face-to-face folks coming in. So one of the best things to do is get together. IT needs to get together with HR, and you need to put on some demonstrations of here is some social engineering things that go on, and actually have people come and watch how this is done. Make it a 15-minute thing, give them breakfast, whatever you need to do, but get them in so that they can see what goes on. So when we think about user training, we think about some of the guidelines that we want to give them. Things like don't share your password. Now, what's the number one password out there? It's number 2 now. What's the new number 1? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Where do I go to find the biggest list of passwords that are out there? I can go to Google and type in top 25 passwords, and guess what? They're going to come up with 2 million lists of the top 25 passwords. But what you're going to find is that the numbers 1 through 4, all the way up through 1 through 9, are in the top 25. Password is still up there, number 2. I love you. Football, basketball, baseball, certain teams are up there. Whoever won the Super Bowl is going to be up there. So you find all these great passwords that are up there, QWERTY, so people are very lazy about the way that they do things. So you want to make sure that people aren't sharing their passwords, they aren't writing their passwords down. So you want to maintain those security policies that you have written. You want to make sure people have read them, that they understand them. You want to recognize any suspicious behavior. You see somebody walking up, you as an employee should stop and talk to that person. Can I help you find something? Are you looking for something in particular? So this way you can actually start beginning to read people. Make sure that somebody who has that suspicious behavior doesn't get into your office. So you want to ignore some specific requests. It was interesting, my boss and I had come back from lunch when I was working at a bank in Santa Rosa, California. There was a gentleman sitting there waiting to talk to us as we came in, and the guy was trying to sell us keyboards. So he wanted to leave us a dozen of the soft keyboards and a dozen of the click, click, click keyboards. He's trying to drop these off at a bank. What did he have in the keyboard in the way of software? Keyloggers. So my boss goes, well, you know, right now I think we're just going to try one of your soft keyboards and one of your click keyboards. So she said to him, why don't you come back in about 2 weeks and pick these up? We'll let you know if we want to place an order. And she's like, okay. So we take it in. My boss turns to me. I was a contractor at the time. She says, why don't you set up 2 machines, basically in the front room, put big signs on it that say, these keyboards have key loggers. If you are pissed off, if you are angry, if you want to vent, get something off your chest. Sit down and just type. Let it out, because somebody put a key logger on here. They're going to come read our messages. So let them know how you feel about them trying to steal our money from our bank. Oh, we filled up those, because they could only handle 1 million characters inside. These were really old. This was back in 1998. So we filled up their buffer very quickly and their memory stick, so they didn't have any more space and stopped working. So we had to call the guy up. Hey, your keyboard stopped working. Come pick it up. We must have filled up the key logger. That was a short conversation. He came back disgruntledly picking up his keyboards. But yeah, they just sat there just firing this out. So when someone comes in to drop something off like that, they're not doing it because they really want to sell you a keyboard. They want to see if you're going to plug that into your workstation, log on, and give them access later on. The policies, we talked a little bit about least privilege, the need to know. We should only grant you access to those things to do your job. So if you're working at one task, they change your MOS to something else, should they go ahead and disable your account over here and then enable your account over on something else? Or should they still grant you access to your old MOS even though you're on the new one? No, they should completely take you off of this and put you on the new one so you no longer have access. So that privilege is only if you are doing that particular task. We've already talked about the clean desk, the fact that you should have something. If you have anything of interest on your desk, it should be gone by the time you are leaving to go on break or to lunch or for the day. One of the things I learned a long, long time ago, when you are on the internet and you've logged into an area, whether that be your email, your bank, or whatever, one thing, don't have more than one window open at a time. We'll talk about that a little bit later on when we get into some of the attacks that are out there. When you are done with that particular login, you've gone out to Gmail, before you open anything else up, log out of the first one before you open up something else. If you have 2 things open at the same time, I can backdoor from one into the other through your computer system. You always want to make sure that you log out, you don't close the window, because when you close the window, you're still actively logged in, which means that I can do a replay attack, come right back in as you, take over that session, and if you're on the bank, at your bank, I'm happy. When we think about data disposal, what are we supposed to do with old data? If I've got a USB, what do I do with the USB? If I've got data that's on a CD, DVD, we can shred those pretty easily. What if it's a hard drive? What if it's a floppy? Do we want to degauss the disk? Do we want to somehow overwrite this with the Department of Defense 7 times overwrite? Or do we just want to destroy this? So one of the things that I did is I bought a laptop a couple weeks ago. I'm getting ready to go to Australia to do a diving trip to do some whale on a whale research project. So I bought a small laptop because I need to transfer all of my videos and stills out of the cameras and over to an external hard drive. So I need to clear up the memory that's on my devices I'm taking underwater. So I bought a small laptop from HP. I got it up at Staples. And I went ahead and took off their antivirus, anti-malware, and I can't remember what it was. Norton, I think it was Norton. And I put on WebRoot, which is my favorite. I've used WebRoot now for the last 3 years. I like WebRoot because if somebody on the inside of my network wants to make an outside connection, it's going to stop and tell me, this product wants to connect out. I'll take a look at it and find out where it's going and why is it, I didn't ask for this to happen, why is it doing this? Many times it's just to find, is there an update for my software? So I went ahead and took off Norton, put on WebRoot. All of a sudden I started getting these heap overflows and crashes that were happening with Windows 10. And I wasn't always getting the same heap overflow. I started getting other messages as well, and I went, this has never happened on WebRoot before. I wonder if there's something else going on with this system. So I took it back to Staples, and before I did, I had to take off all my stuff. Well, I realized that I had put a lot of my business information on there for the last 2 weeks. So I went ahead and deleted it all out. What happens when you delete a file? Is it really gone? Why not? There's two markers for a file. There's the beginning of file flag, and when you end the file, it puts up an end of file flag. When you go and open that file again, it pulls this one out and leaves that open because you might add to the file, you might delete something from the file, and it needs to put this back in once you've closed that file. But anytime you've got data that's in your system, if I go and delete it, all it does is remove the end of file flag. The data is still there. So I can actually go in with the unformat or undelete command and actually put the end of file flags back in and go view all your data. Well, the best thing you can do is overwrite that data. So what I ended up doing was downloading about 100 gigs worth of stuff, and I downloaded it to my drive, took it, copied it, put it inside a folder inside of that other folder. Did this 3 times, so I ended up copying all that one more time, so I ended up with 600 gigs overwriting. I definitely know I overwrote any files and folders I had in there. So you always have to be very cautious about the fact that when you are turning something in or getting rid of it, someone has access to that stuff. So we can go back in your system and we can actually find some of these files that are in there. So you always have to think about the policies that you've got for data disposal. We think about the policies that we have for incident response. When you have an incident, is that when you put together your incident response team? No. How much lead time does the incident response team need to have to get the right tools, to get a forensic lab set up, to get a place where they can lock up hard drives and or computer systems? Probably going to need at least a year of lead time to be able to do this correctly. So you don't want to wait till you've had the incident to go, hey, by the way, we need an incident response team. You want to go ahead and set that up right away. We look at some of the technical controls we can put into place for social engineering. What is a man trap? Somebody says marriage, I'm going to smack you. Yes, sir.
Isn't that when one person go in at a time, doors?
You got 2 doors, glass between them. Sometimes you got a camera in there or you got a security guard watching what's going on. Use one form of authentication to open the first door, like a hand scan or a retinal scan. Opens the first door. You cannot open the second door until the first door is closed. And then we use a second type of authentication to open the second door. So that would be a man trap. Many times we put in spam filters. We don't want spam coming into our computer. There are many times when people want to send spam out to you. Why? Because they'll get somebody to answer that spam, which lets them into their computer system. We also have the network controls we can put into place in the way of routers, switches, firewalls, and access points. We can limit the traffic flow with things like access control lists. We'll see that coming up a little bit later on. If I think about my surveillance system, if I put cameras on the outside of my building, where should the feed go from those cameras? Should that be going back into some device internal to my building that's recording all of this? I should have that. And how often should I be backing up that recording? On a daily basis. When I was at Silicon Valley College, I left there as the IT director and went to work for another company. I'd been gone for about 4 months, and I get a phone call from the new IT guy that took my place. And he says, Eric, I had a slight problem here. I thought maybe you could help me out with it. And I said, what seems to be the problem? He said, all my routers and switches were stolen out of my Cisco room. I was wondering if you had any idea who might have done this. I said, I really don't know, but if you go back and look at your videotape, and his comment to me was, we have a videotape? I said, yes. If you remember when you were an instructor, we came around, we put cameras in every classroom, in every hallway. And he went, oh yeah, I remember that now. I said, your job as the IT director was to swap the tapes every 24 hours. If you don't swap the tape in 24 hours, what happens? It overwrites. And he goes, so I could go back and look at that? And I went, okay, today is Tuesday. This happened on Friday. What do you think? And he's like, so do you have a 4-day tape in there? Yeah. No, I have a 1-day tape, 24 hours. If you didn't catch it on Saturday, you're not catching it at all. He's like, what do? I said, go buy some new equipment. I mean, that is your job, is it not? I said, if the phone call lasts another minute, I'm going to have to charge you my hourly rate. He's like, bye. I should have started with that. But yeah, some people just don't understand what they're supposed to be doing. I should have asked him if he's doing the tape backups of all the servers that are on his site as well. But I didn't have time because he hung up on me. Let's take a look at some of the questions that we have. What kind of an attack is most likely when you're doing sensitive work on your laptop at a coffee shop? My question to you is, why are you doing sensitive data or sensitive work at a coffee shop? Free Wi-Fi. Oh, there you go. Free Wi-Fi and all the coffee I can drink, as long as they can get copies of everything I'm working on. There you go. Impersonation is a core element to most social engineering attacks. True or false? That is true, because there's some form of impersonation, whether you're trying to be authoritative or if you're trying to pretend to be somebody else. Several co-workers in the sales department received email claiming to be from you. Each message was personally addressed and contained a link to a test site and a request to log in with normal user credentials. You never sent it, and on examination, the supposed test site is a phishing scam. Just what variant of phishing is this? It is spear phishing. Why? We are targeting a specific group of people. So they're a specific group in the sales department. So that's what we're looking for, is that word up there that says they are in the sales department. What security controls can protect against tailgating? Choose all that apply. The clean desk policy is going to prevent tailgating? Huh, okay. I got to see that one for myself. Same with spam filters. So everything else, the alarm systems, yes. The tailgating alarms and spam filters or clean desk policies won't help. Man traps and security guards can help. Some alarms you have, if it's built right, I was thinking an alarm that would be, if that first door is not closed and you're trying to get into the second door, that would be an alarm. To me, that would go off, but I think they're talking about some other alarm. So your next question, social engineering attacks are most commonly either in person or over electronic media rather than on the phone. That's false, because when we think about vishing is over the phone, and that's one of the most popular ways of getting people. Have you guys received the call that your Windows machine is not working properly and they want to help you out? Did you stay on the phone with the guy?
No.
Why?
Oh, I had phone with people.
I had fun. I was at the airport for 4.5 hours. And I'd been there for 15 minutes and the phone rings, and I went, I'm going to get comfortable. I'm going to find a place to plug my phone in because I'm going to be here for a while. And I kept talking about all these. I used to teach the Microsoft classes, so I started getting into all these issues and problems I've seen. And God, could you really help me out with this? This would be great. So I got a couple other things and other issues in our office. I mean, maybe you can come do some extra work for us. We kept going on and on and on. And he says, okay, I'm going to need your American Express card. And I went, easy. Let me go ahead and give this to you. Apparently the number I gave him wasn't an authorized number. And I went, hey, thanks for your time. Bye-bye. And he immediately went to my phone and said, don't ever accept a call from this guy again. I do love Apple for that one. So yeah, you don't want to be answering that or giving them anything for that phone call, because they're trying to get into your system and steal something. So yeah. They also just want your credit card because they're from another country and they can spend it very quickly. This next module talks about malware. We're going to talk about the variants of malware. We're going to talk about how it spreads, some of the ways that it can damage an infected system, and how to avoid detection if you are a malware attack vector. When we take a look at the different vectors that are out there, we've got viruses, worms, Trojan horses, logic bombs, and what's known as a watering hole. Let's begin with a virus. Viruses are wonderful because they need to attach to something else. And every time you launch that program, it's going to reattach to something different. So if you think about your operating system, every time you launch your operating system, if you have a virus that's attached to it, it's going to go ahead and replicate out to something else and attach itself to that other piece of software. Viruses like to attach themselves usually to an executable or to a COM file, or a batch file, something that's going to be executed by an end user. Worms are a little different because worms are self-replicating. They don't need to have some trigger mechanism to launch them. They will just launch on their own. I love Trojan horses because with a Trojan horse, you have the ability to attach other files to the Trojan horse. One of my favorite games to play is Tetris. And one of the things that we do in the ethical hacking class is we give you Tetris to play with. So I'm going to send you Tetris. The moment you see Tetris, what are you going to do? I'm going to start. That's what I did when I first saw it. I opened it up. I started playing it and then realized that there's something else going on in the background. I realized there were 3 other files that got loaded on my system. When I opened up the other 3 files, it came up with a little message that went, gotcha. Had this been a real attack, we could have brought you down. One of the very first Trojan horses I got was an attachment from a buddy of mine named Dave. Dave and I are good friends still. We're diving buddies. We've been all over Hawaii diving. And he sends me an email. We're both working as field service engineers. And he sends me an email and he says, you've got to check out this attachment. So I open up the attachment. The attachment opens up and it lists out on the screen all of the files and folders on my computer. And next to it is a little tiny tornado that starts to gather in size and speed. As it does so, it comes over and it moves to the bottom and it starts grabbing files. And you start seeing it go, shoo, shoo, shoo. And it's grabbing the files and they're disappearing and exploding. And I'm watching this as it moves up. It's taking all my folders and directories and files. And I'm on my knees. I'm hitting my escape key going, no! No! And I can hear Dave laughing in the back going, oh my God, this is hilarious. And then finally it goes, poof. And the screen pops down and it says, this could have been your machine. Aren't you glad it's not? And I'm like, son of a... My heart was pounding. I thought I was going to have a heart attack when I was on my knees hitting that escape key.
Probably sees this like
So what do they say about paybacks? Was I too loud for them? Yeah. Apologize to them on my behalf. I'll tell them I won't get that crazy again. So Dave, being a manager, likes to play a little game with the employees. When your birthday is coming up, thank you. He likes to invite you into his office. He's got a glass office, and he invites you in to have a seat. So I come in, I'm a field service engineer. I come in and I sit down. And Dave goes, I got a call last night from Renee up at Kaiser Permanente Hospital up in Santa Rosa. I don't know what you're doing up there, but you pissed her off. She does not want you up there anymore. So she's asked that we send somebody else, so we're going to go ahead and set Brian up in your place, and you're never going back up there again. And I'm like, oh. And I started falling forward, and as I fell to my knees, as I was falling on my face, I reached in my pocket, and I grabbed the Alka-Seltzer. And as I fell face down, I put the Alka-Seltzer in my mouth, and I kind of laid back, and all of a sudden, the foam started coming out, and I started doing this. Foam is going everywhere, right? And I told the people outside that I was going to do this. Do not call 911. Don't let Dave call 911. So I'm sitting there flailing. Foam is going everywhere, and Dave is standing up and screaming, no, no, no. And he's opening the door going, call 911, call 911. And the owner walks by and goes, he's outlived his usefulness. Let him die in peace. And just walks. And Dave is like, but he's my friend. And I sat up and I went, really? You would send that email to me being a friend? Really? And he's like, so you're okay? I'm like, yeah, that was just, an Alka-Seltzer to pay. And he's like, son of a bitch, man. You had me. I said, now you know how I felt. Payback's always fun. So you think about that Trojan horse. One of the biggest concerns that we have is somebody goes out to Microsoft.com, they get the latest patch, they add a Trojan horse to the latest patch, and they put it somewhere else. So what are you going to do? You're going to go out on Google, you're going to say, I need the latest patch from Microsoft. They're going to point you to this. You'll download this with the Trojan horse attached. So always be very cautious where you get your software. Always get it from the manufacturer. Okay. Logic bomb is going to lie dormant until a specific condition is met. That specific condition could be a time. It could be the number of times, a time of day, a day of the week of the year, something like that. It could be the number of times you've used that particular product. So, I've opened up this file 25 times. Boom, it launches. So that would be the logic bomb that we have. Watering hole. If you think about the watering holes that they have in Africa, what animals come up to the watering hole? All of them. What animal likes to sit in a watering hole waiting for the animal to come up? Crocodile. So this is basically what they're doing. They're infecting a trusted site or service. So when you come in, you get into that trusted site, and all of a sudden, boom, they got you. So be very cautious. Anytime you're going to any site whatsoever, always keep your antivirus, anti-malware updated. Many of the payloads, we're going to put a backdoor into your system. This is a hidden way into the system. Many times these are called rootkits. If you take a look at the way something like Microsoft boots up, once I have formatted my drive and I go ahead and put the Microsoft on my system, what it's doing is it's going into the master boot record, and at the beginning, when you boot up your system, it looks at the MBR and says, this is where I'm booting from. If I put something such as a rootkit on your system, it's going to pick up Windows, it's going to move it, and the rootkit's going to come in its place. So now when you reboot the system, the rootkit is actually started. It's pointing to Windows. Now when you're on Windows system, who's in control? The rootkit. So if I go into Windows and I say, go into Task Manager and show me all the applications that are running, guess what? The rootkit's not there. Why? Because the rootkit's reporting back to you what it found. It didn't find the rootkit because it's in control. It doesn't want you to know it's there. How do you know if you have a rootkit? You don't. How do I find a rootkit? You don't. No, you can. It's very difficult to find a rootkit. They have things like rootkit revealers that don't reveal much in the way of rootkits. I know this because we use it in the ethical hacking class. We put rootkits on our systems and we could never find them. What you have to do is you have to go into the master boot record and see what's booting. If it's a .sys file, you know it's a rootkit. If it's the windows.exe, you know it's a Windows system. How do you handle the data that's on your system that has a rootkit on it? Well, you have to be very cautious because that data could be compromised. So you always got to be very cautious if you're going to be reusing that data that we have. So backdoors are ways that people can get into our systems or applications through something like a rootkit. Now, do programmers write backdoors into our software, into something that they wrote? Why are they doing this? Do we not want them coming through a backdoor? Why not? One, they can make modifications to the software that we don't know about. Secondly, they're in our program and we don't know it. We like to track who comes in. We like to turn on auditing. Who came in? When did they come in? What did they do? When did they leave? All of that becomes important. If there's a backdoor into my software, we can't record any of that. So we want to know if you're in our system, but we also want to know that you can't make any modifications to my system. So we want that software to be secure. What is ransomware? So I was recently at my dentist's office. Why is it that the dentist waits until you've had your Novocaine before he asks you questions? He waits until my whole upper mouth is numb, and he got sick things hanging in my mouth. He says, so Eric, he says, a good friend of mine just got hit with ransomware. How do I protect myself? Really, Doc, you wait until I'm completely numbed up, and then you ask me the question. He goes, well, of course. It's no fun trying to decipher what you're saying if you're not numb. I'm like, oh, okay, well, what you want to do, you want to get yourself a hard drive, and you want to go ahead and copy everything over onto that. And he goes, well, how much does an external hard drive cost me? Really? You were able to understand that? And he goes, yeah, you sound like my 2-year-old. I looked at him, I said, Doc, I get no respect at all. My wife, she likes to talk after having sex. She called me up last night from New York. Now they get it, see? It's a 4-second joke, you know. I'm not married, so it's okay. I'm just joking here. I actually got called in the dean's office for telling that one. Because one of my students went and told the dean about it, and the dean calls me in and he goes, I don't get it. Can you explain it to me? Okay. Spyware. There's a whole boatload of spywares that are out there. When you take the ethical hacking class, we show you some different spywares. Senna spyware is one of the good ones. Senna's great because I can go in and tell it to not only capture your keystrokes, but take pictures of your screen every, 10 seconds to every minute, whatever, even up to every 5 minutes. We do this because when you have a keylogger, you're only capturing half the conversation. If we turn on the screenshots, then we get the other half of the conversation. Because many times when someone's just getting the keystrokes, we're just getting your response. We don't get to see what somebody else has typed. I'm always concerned about adware. The guys that write adware sometimes are brilliant. I've seen adware show up on the right-hand side of my screen to where they also put the entire ad in a translucent screen in front of me to where all I see is this little piece over here, and I just have to click anywhere on my screen and it launches. So the moment you click that, if you could close it before it fully loads, then you're good to go. So you always got to be very cautious whenever you see ads on your system, which is all the time. If we look at some of the hidden malware, we've got several ways of doing this. The polymorphic is always changing. So there's polymorphic and metamorphic, and they're changing all the time. So the problem is that our signatures from our anti-malware don't always catch the new polymorphic forms that are out there. So that's what we're looking for. The stealth malware hides from any anti-malware. It knows what the anti-malware software is looking for. It's able to alter itself, wait until the anti-malware has checked against it, and then it reforms itself back over to the attack and goes after you. So on the rootkit side, not only do we compromise the boot, but we could also compromise your operating system functionality. Rootkits have this ability to, there's 16 different types of rootkits that are out there. They can go after the boot record. They can go after different aspects of your computer system. So the best thing to do is just go back out and take a look at some of the different rootkits that are out there. So your defenses for malware, we talked about legitimate sourcing. Make sure for all the hardware, all the software, that you are getting it from the manufacturer. Make sure that you are running some sort of anti-malware, antivirus on your computer systems and on your phone as well. So you want to make sure that that's got it as well. System permissions, restricting user installations of applications. We want to limit what end users can do on our computer systems. So we want to make sure that you are coming in as a user, that you only have access as a user, that we're not allowing you as a user to place software onto our systems. The thing about the security updates, anytime I'm putting in new updates for my applications or my operating systems, let's make sure that you've got, one, the rights to do this, but also make sure it's coming from the right location. Other malware defenses that we have are firewalls, our IDSs, our spam filters, our network antivirus. These combined give us that, defense in depth. So if you were to come into my network right now from the internet, you would find that you're going to come through my DSL that's provided to me by AT&T. From there, you're going to come into my firewall. Then you're going to go through my IDS, IPS. Then you're coming into my router. Then you're coming inside of my network. So I've got it layered, so you got to come through. If you can get through all 4 of those to get inside my network, then you're going to find all my data is encrypted. So if you want to come in, help yourself, but you got to go through all of those to get there. So I'm trying to do it to save what's on the inside of my network. If I'm going to be connecting in, generally my laptop, I can connect in over a VPN tunnel from my hotel into my house. I can connect in, grab the data that I need, pull it out, and I've got it for class. Generally, I just keep it on a disk and bring it with me. But sometimes I have to go back home and get that. So that's one of the things that we always have to think about is, can I use multiple devices? The more devices you put in, the more hoops you make an attacker jump through, the harder it's going to be. And many times they just look at it and go, you know what? I don't have time for this. I'm going to go find somebody else's system that's easier to break into. Policies and training, making sure that we limit where people can go. Don't allow people to go to an unknown site. If there's phishing links out there, you can find spots, places like cert.org that'll tell you some of the phishing sites that are out there. So you want to make sure that people don't go to some of those sites. Also, removable media. I know that on base, you are not allowed to have USBs outside of the classroom. It was great. I was teaching at Ellsworth Air Force Base. I was doing this class at Ellsworth. And I had the training coordinator in my class. And I said, sir, I need to transfer some stuff from my laptop over to your laptop so I can do something. I said, can I use, this was one of my first times on a base. I said, can I use my USB? And he goes, there are no USBs allowed in here. And I went, okay. He goes, but you can use an external hard drive. Okay. And he leaves. So what do? I take out my external hard drive, and what do? I copy from my laptop over to their laptop. So I plug my external hard drive into their laptop, and within 45 seconds to a minute, who's standing at the door? Yelling at me. Same guy's yelling at me. He's like, who plugged in? I went, well, that would be me. He's like, I told you couldn't do that. I said, no. What you said, let me quote you on this. Eric, you are not allowed to use a USB at any time on this base, but you can use an external hard drive. What was wrong with his statement? What he failed to say was you can use our external hard drive. He didn't say I couldn't use mine. So what did he do? He took my external hard drive and he left with it. And I went, that is coming back, is it not? And he went, I don't think so. And I said, I expect to see it on the commandant's desk in 2 hours when I go there and meet him for lunch. And it was sitting there with a little note that said, please don't give this back to Eric. I had to plead with the commandant that I just bought this and that I explained the conversation. And he looks at me and he goes, I was going to throw you in the brig overnight, but I think I'm going to have to throw my master sergeant in the brig for what he said to you. I said, no, don't do that. It was just a mistake. It was my mistake. I said, I am buying lunch. And he went, in that case, we're okay. And he gave me back my drive. So I was okay with that. I learned very quickly that you've got to ask the right questions. What I should have said was, after he said, you can use an external hard drive. But wait a minute, sir, mine is an external USB. So why are you saying I can use that when you just told me I can't use a USB? At that time, he would have clarified that I could use his drive and not mine. So these are some of the things that you always have to clarify when you're looking at things. Okay, we got a couple questions here. A user complains that every time they open up their internet browser, it no longer goes to their preferred home page. Advertisements pop up in the dialog box that they have to close. What is the likely cause of this? Spyware, yes. So spyware is altered where they're going. So spyware can actually go into your settings for the internet that are on your home page, and you can actually change that. So spyware will do that for us. The user logs onto the computer and is presented with a screen showing Department of Justice logo, indicating the computer has been locked due to the operating system being in violation of federal law. The screen gives several details of the violation, indicates that the user must pay a fine of $500 within 72 hours or a warrant will be issued for their arrest. The user cannot unlock their system. What type of malware is infecting their computer? I really hope that's ransomware. It is. What kind of malware can spread through a network without any human interaction? That's a worm. How do you say that in Germany? Firm. Yep. One of the first towns I went to when I arrived in Germany was Worm. Beautiful town. Beautiful castles in the town. You traced some odd network activity to malware that's infected the whole department's computers. You're processing a distributed task using spare CPU cycles, communicating with a remote server, sending email to random targets. What kind of malware is this? That is a botnet. So botnets are going to be talking out to other devices that are out there. Botnet really stands for a robot. So we have robot software that's sitting on your system along with hundreds of other or thousands of other people's. So we have a command and control center which is going to remotely connect to all those robots and launch the attack from the botnet. So all of these are considered one location. We can send out one command that will go to all of them at once, and they can all launch an attack against one computer or one entity at one time. So bots are very easy to get on somebody's system. So remember, 94% of all computer systems have been compromised, which means a good portion of those are probably already running some sort of botnet software. You found a computer infected by stealth malware. The program installed itself as part of the computer's boot process so it can gain access to the entire operating system and hide from anti-malware software. What kind of malware is this? That is my rootkit, yes. So in this next module, we're going to take a look at how to classify our network attacks. We're going to look at probing, spoofing, and redirection attacks. We're going to take a look at forced access and then password cracking. We're going to talk about eavesdropping and man-in-the-middle attacks. And finally, we'll talk about some wireless network attacks. In the TCP/IP protocol, in TCP itself, we have several different flags inside of TCP. If I want to initiate, well, first off, let me back up just a moment. What's the difference between TCP and UDP?
Connections and connection oriented.
We have that in English.
So with TCP, everything has to go through a connection a certain route. With UDP, it's kind of like streaming, it just spread out as fast as it can.
So with TCP, it's guaranteed delivery. It's a three-way handshake to initiate the whole process. And if I lose a packet, we can resend the packet. UDP is either streaming audio or streaming video. And there's no checksum involved. We don't resend packets. You either get it or you don't. Okay, so TCP, we've got 6 different flags over TCP. When I send out a connection, if I want to initiate a connection, I send out a SYN packet. What do I get back? Acknowledgement and another SYN. I have to acknowledge that. So we have the synchronization bit and the acknowledge bit. When I'm all done sending you traffic, I send you a FIN packet, which is the final packet coming across. If I don't like your connection, I can send you a reset, which says, I'm going to drop you. We're going to reset this connection. If I want to get you the information very quickly, I have an urgent flag to say, let's get this to you very quickly. And then we also have a push, so I can push the data to you quickly as well. So I've got 6 different flags that we can set. If I set all those flags and send you a packet, it's known as a Christmas attack because I'm giving you all the flags for a Christmas present. And anytime we are sending you too many flags, what we're looking for is your response to this. Your response is going to tell me whether or not the port that I have sent this to is open or closed. Why do I need to know this as a hacker? Because if you tell me the port is open, this is an attack that I can make. If the port's closed, I'm going to move on and find a port that's open. Because what I want to do is I want to attack your system through that port. Now, if by chance you are running a web page, we can do something called fuzzing. We can try random input on your web page to see if we can break in. Now, back into most web pages is going to be a database. If this is a relational database such as Oracle, MySQL, MySQL, all of these are relational databases. Anybody here ever stay at the Marriott hotels? When you stay at the Marriott, and you go in with your credentials, you have a username and a password. Is it possible for me to obfuscate that under the username and put 1 = 1, which means true in a relational database? Go down to your password and type in the word password, hit enter, and have it list for me every person who's got an account with Marriott who's got the password of password. Can we do this? Does it work? Well, it does not work on the Marriott webpage. How do I know this? Because every week I launch an attack against Marriott. And I want you to know I have permission to do so. I didn't when I first started, but I now have permission. I was on a flight coming back from somewhere in Europe. Older guy comes in and sits next to me. I happen to be sitting right up in front, right next to the window. Guy comes in, sits down, says, "Hi, my name's Bill." I said, "Hi, my name's Eric." I said, "Bill, what do you do for a living?" He says, "Oh, I own a couple of hotels." Oh, okay. So the flight attendant comes by and she says, "Gentlemen, can I get you something to drink?" And I said, "Well, Bill, if you own a couple of hotels, you probably want to try this new single malt scotch that they have here, which is called Glenfarclane. It's a really tasty." He goes, "That would be great." So the flight attendant leaves. She goes out. She finds 3 bottles. She comes back and puts the 3 bottles into 2 glasses for us. We have a little toast. Take our taste. Bill tastes it and he goes, "Yeah, I don't like it that much." And he pours it in my glass. The purser comes by a few minutes later and she says, "Gentlemen, I'd like to get your order for dinner." She turns to me and she says, "Mr. Lefevre, what would you like for dinner?" I said, "I'll have the beef tips, please." She said, "Great. That's a good choice." She turns to Bill and says, "Mr. Marriott, what would you like?" This is Bill Marriott, the CEO of Marriott Hotels. I said, "Bill, come on, really? A couple of hotels? You have almost 10,000 hotels." And he went, "Yeah, just a couple." I guess when you're that rich, you don't have to worry about it. He's a good Mormon, so he doesn't drink that much. That's why he poured his drink into mine. I said, "Bill, I want to let you know that I hack your website every week." And he gave me the strangest look. And then he goes, "How's that working out for you?" I said, "It's not." He went, "So my web page is secure?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He says, "One moment." He reaches in his pocket. He pulls out his business card. And he said, "If at any time you are able to breach my web page, let me know first." I said, "Well, wouldn't you be the second person to know? Wouldn't I be the first?" He goes, "Okay, that's good." So I was on another flight, and I'm talking to the guy sitting next to me, and I relay this story to him. And he pulls out his business card, and he works for Verizon. And I went, "Oh, great, thank you." "Tony." And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "We handle the web page for Marriott. Before you email Bill, can you send me the email so we can fix it before he gets it?" It is a very small world that I live in. I don't know how I meet these people, and it seems to just always seem to snowball like this. And I said, "Yeah." So he and I are talking, and I mentioned that when United had moved into adding their wireless on their planes, one of the things I would do when I was on an 8 to 10 hour flight was I would walk around the airplane doing a site survey, because most of the times I'm in seat 25L or K, because those are on the window side, and we're sitting right over the wing, which is supposed to be one of the safer places to be. And I noticed that we're fine at 10,000 feet when we take off with my wireless connection, but once we get up to 30,000 feet, I lose my connection altogether. So I walk around the plane and I start basically doing my site survey. I take snapshots of the fact that I have no signal in certain areas. So I'm sitting in the front galley and I'm typing up this letter I'm sending to the CEO of how pissed off I am at United for this. So the flight attendant comes by and goes, "What are you doing?" "Oh, I'm doing a site survey of the wireless that doesn't work on your plane." And he went, "Who are you writing the letter to?" I said, "Jeff Zamet, the CEO." And he went, "Are you thirsty at all?" I went, "A glass of wine would be great." So he goes up to first class, pulls back a whole red bottle of red wine for me, and just, "Here, the bottle's yours. Hide the bottle when you go back." I'm like, "I'm just going to sit here and drink it. You got a straw?" And he's like, "No, don't do that." So I got hammered doing this. So I sent Jeff Zamet, the CEO, the letter. He never responded to me. So I sent him 3 of those letters, never responded. So I added in all the members of the board of trustees. The only person to respond was Oscar Munoz, who's now the CEO. So when Jeff left, Oscar stepped in. And one of my comments was, why don't you get on the plane and just go take a couple flights and see if your passengers are happy with your wireless. So Oscar's actually done that. He's been on over 24 flights now. But one of the things to always think about is that when you are starting to look at the way that you go out to any web page, test the web page, see if you can break in. If it's your web page you're putting up there, or if your area of asking someone to put some input, some data, test it, see if you can break that. We're going to see fuzzing is trying all sorts of different combinations of characters. Many times we do what is called banner grabbing. We want to find out what operating system you're running. What's your operating system? What are the programs that you're running? So that's what banner grabbing is going to do for me. We can also do spoofing. We can spoof your IP address. I can find out what your IP address very easily, go in and change my address. I can also spoof your MAC address. If I can find out what your MAC address is, it's very easy, especially, in wireless. I can go in and grab that. We have a tool out there called SMAC, S-M-A-C-K, SMAC. SMAC can be used to change my MAC address on the fly. One of the things you want to do before you invoke SMAC, however, is go in and write down your current MAC address. Because otherwise you're going to have to open up your laptop and find out what it is. It's not a fun task to go through. So write down what your what your MAC address is. I found with my email, I can actually send out an email to somebody and I can change the return address. So we can spoof that email address very easily and have replies sent to somebody else. I used to teach the voice over IP classes, and I had this one gentleman in one of my classes who decided to go and change the ringtones on everybody's phone to these very obnoxious ringtones. So I decided to change his system around a little bit. When he'd pick up his phone and he'd dial one of the other students, I had it ring his other phone. He's like, well, that's not right. I dialed some. So he hangs up and he tries any number he dialed, it always redirected him back to his other phone. So he hangs that phone up and he picks up this one. He starts to try other people's phones and it rings his other phone. He's like, what the heck? And we can do what's called masking. I can go in and it doesn't matter what number you call. I will redirect you back over to something else. And it will always appear to come from your number. One of the, 2020 or 60 Minutes, one of those two had a great article. Have you guys ever received the robocalls? They showed how they do the robocalls. So the reporter said, I've gone through and I've gotten the 20 phones from my coworkers in the office, and they're all sitting right here. So the hacker is going to go ahead and send a robocall to all 20 at the same time. And he's just going into his phone, and he's already pre-configured all the numbers, put it in there. And he says, so let me make a message. Let me make a message that sounds like it's coming from a computer. And he just went ahead and put that in. He just went ahead and dialed it, and it sent it. All 20 are ringing at the same time. As you pick it up, you could hear that message that he had just put in. And he said, it's just that simple. We can send that phone call to 10 people, to 100 people, to 1,000 people, to 10,000, all at the same time. There's nothing you can do to stop that. Kind of scares me when you think about how easy it is to do that these days. Redirection, we have a couple different ways to redirect you. Can anybody tell me what ARP is? Did you just read that off the book? Of course you did. What are we resolving between? Look at my eyes. Look in my eyes. No. You can't be looking down on the page. Yes? I'm resolving between your MAC address and your IP address. If I'm on a switch, let's say that I'm on my workstation, I want to send some traffic to you, and I know what your IP is, but I don't know what your MAC address is. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead, and my machine's going to send out an ARP broadcast. I know that your IP address is 100, 100, 100, 100. So I'm going to send out a broadcast that says, who has 100, 100, 100, 100? your workstation is going to send its MAC address back to the switch, who's then going to send it back to me. So the switch will now have your MAC address and the port that you live on. I will have your MAC address so that I could go ahead and put this on the packet before I send it. We'll see that coming up a little bit later on. What is DNS? What do we use it for? We are resolving between your web page and your IP address. So what we're doing is I want to go to www.cisco.com. My DNS server is going to go resolve that. If it can't find it, it's going to send a query up to my ISP. Do you know where cisco.com is? Nope. Send it up to their ISP. Do you know where cisco.com is? Yes, here's the address. Boom, here's the address. And they will pass that on down. Now, let me ask you this. What bank do you bank at? And you can make one up.
Navy Fed.
Okay. Can I take Navy Federal's web page and spoof the page? There's a great tool out there called Black Widow. So I can take Black Widow and I can go ahead and replicate your page and put it on my server right here. Problem is, now I got to get your request over to this server, not to the real server. So I now have to go in and change your DNS entry on your computer system. You have something called a host file, which is going to resolve between the IP address of your local DNS server. So what I want to do is change that. So if I can get your DNS entry changed to point to my DNS server, then when you go to Navy Federal Credit Union, it'll come back and redirect you back over to my copy of the page. Why would I want to do this? So when you come in and log in, I'm going to capture your credentials, turn around on my computer, and actually go to the real page and steal your information. You have a lot of money in your account? Let me find somebody else. So that's the big thing, is that somebody can do that very easily. It is so easy to do. One of my students in Guam said, I can do this, I can change your host file just by sending you an email. You just have to open the email. I doubted this. I doubted this to the point where I said, I'm going to bet you dinner that you cannot do this. And he said, well, where are we having dinner? I mean, there's a big difference between going to Denny's and going out to a sushi restaurant. I said, do you want sushi? We'll go to sushi. He said, we're going to sushi then. I'm like, you're pretty assured of yourself. And he went, oh yeah. So he sends me the email. All I did was open the email. There was no attachment. I just opened the email. I looked down. My DNS entry was changed. I'm like, how'd you do that? He says, when we're at dinner, I'll tell you. He was really holding that one over me. Turns out my other student, Eric, his uncle owned the sushi restaurant in town. So we just went down there and got the special seat and got the special treatment. Oh, we didn't order a thing. Oh, Uncle took care of us. Oh, the things he gave us? God, was that good. I think that little mistake cost me about $120. Well, we were hitting the sake pretty hard. So you think about that host file alteration. If we can alter your host file, we can redirect you back wherever we want. Farming is similar to fishing, but with a compromised DNS. So with farming, we're going to send you out to a space that you do not know about. Domain hijacking, we want to redirect traffic for a site to an intimidator. So with domain hijacking, I'm hijacking your request to go out to your bank and redirecting this back over. One of the interesting things I've seen over the years is something called VLAN hopping. For the last 20 years of teaching computer security classes, I've seen VLAN hopping show up in 20 different books. I've never once ever found somebody who can do it. It's double tagging a VLAN, so we're going to get into that when we talk about switches a little bit later on. So when we get into the switches, I will actually show you why you can't really do this. So this is one of the older techniques that's out there. So what is denial of service? If I think about a denial of service or a DOS, I'm going to prevent your system from working. Is there a way I can go after one system in your network and bring your one system down that's going to affect everybody in the office? Yes, it's your NTP server. What is NTP? Network time protocol. How does network time protocol work? We're all synchronized to the same NTP server. If your NTP server, I know you guys are on a military base, but think back out on the private sector. Most private sector companies say you can come into work somewhere between 6 in the morning and 6 in the evening. So you can log in between 6 a.m. and we're going to kick you out of the network at 6 p.m. What would happen if I went into the NTP server and changed AM to PM? Somebody shows up at 7 o'clock in the morning to log in, but their clock on their computer says 7 p.m. What's going to happen? They can't log in. Would this be a denial of service for everybody for the entire day? Just like taking a snow day? Oh, snow days. I like snow days, yes. They're good, they're bad. I love going out and playing in the snow, but on the other hand, if I have to make up all that work, that really sucks. So when we think about a denial of service, there's a lot of ways I can do this. I was up here in Baltimore teaching a class for CMS. Who is CMS? I am required to go in and connect in with them by the time I turn 64 and a half. Who are they? The Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services. So I'm up in Baltimore doing a class for CMS. And I got a guy sitting in my class, and it's always the guys sitting in the second row right over here that are my problem children. So the gentleman who's sitting there comes up, and he says, Eric, can I talk to you outside for a moment? And I went, sure. So we step outside the classroom. He goes, no, outside of the building. And I'm like, why is it that everybody wants to take me outside of the building? What is going on with you people? So I said, sure. So we step outside of the building. We'll just say that his name is Steve. I said, Steve, what's going on? He said, I wanted to let you know I do not work for CMS. I said, this is a class dedicated for the Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services. How did you get in the class? He said, my boss arranged this. My boss will be on vacation this week, so he redirected me to be here this week rather than be at work. I want your boss doesn't trust you to be at work by yourself. So he reached down and he picked up his pant leg, and there's a little red blinking light there. What's the red blinking light for? He got caught doing something he shouldn't have done. I said, well, where do you work? He says, I really don't work anywhere. I am, however, required to show up at the NSA Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. I said, how long had you been hacking the NSA before you got caught? He said, 17 years. So they asked me, they gave me a choice. They said, go to jail for 20 years or come work with us for 20 years. So at least I'm here and I get to hang out. So my boss decided that since he's on vacation, that he would send me here, so I will be at least, my time will be accounted for. I said, okay. I said, so why did you invite me out here? And he said, because my boss is going to call during the week to find out if I'm here. I would appreciate if you said yes. I said, I'll be happy to say yes, but give me a good story for my security classes, because these guys love stories. And he goes, okay. He said, 2 years ago, my wife and I were getting a divorce, and we have 2 kids. Wanted to make sure that I got equal custody of the kids. So he said, I needed to capture all of the data going between my soon-to-be ex-wife and her attorney. So how are you going to go about capturing all the communications between the ex-wife? What are you thinking?
A lot. There's email, there's phone conversations.
Well, he's not allowed to get within 500 yards of her. So how's he going to capture the emails or the voice calls? What are you thinking, Bill? Well, we have an ethical hacker right here. Ashley, what are you thinking? How's lunch? Is it good? Are those Cheez-Its?
Yeah.
Any special cheese sauce on there, or is that just the regular Cheez-Its? Oh, they have a really good spicy one. Just don't let it get up in your sinuses, because then you'll be sneezing. So you can't think of any good hacking way of getting... Yes, sir? Eavesdropping might be a good way to do it. What do they have in common? Kids. What do kids like to do? What else? They certainly do not listen. What's that?
They have very good antennas.
They do have great antennas. What do kids like to do?
Yep.
Play mom against dad. I love that one. What else do they like to do?
Play on their parents' phones.
On their phones. What else do they like to do? They like to play games. So what did Steve leave by the front door when the kids were going back to mom's house? A disc that said great games. So when the kids left, they grabbed the disc, they took it to mom's house. He said within 10 minutes of them leaving, I had full access into her computer. So I captured all of the emails. He said by the end of the first week, though, I had 10 more people on my network. Who are these 10 people and where did they come from? What did the kids do with the disc? They took it to school and shared it with their friends. Welcome to a distributed denial of service. Steve runs command and control. These guys are all zombies. Can he launch an attack through the zombie against somebody as a distributed denial of service attack? So I asked him, I said, how easy would it be for you to launch attacks? He said, as easy as it is for you to sit down in a chair and open up your computer and log on somewhere. Really? That easy? He goes, oh yeah. So remember, I've been doing this now for 25, almost 30 years now. So for me, this is second nature to be able to go and do this. I said, so if you wanted to bring down the White House? And he went, well, if I wanted to, I could, but I certainly don't want to. Because they said if I ever get caught hacking anything again, it's off to jail. Really? Okay. Or reflective denial of service, you don't have to actually have bots on anybody's system. I can actually send a broadcast out to all those people and then have them send a response back to a single individual and bring that individual down, because we can overwhelm all of your resources. So we can bring you down pretty quickly. We also have a couple other variants. The ping of death. This is an oversized ping packet. This is impossible to do nowadays because Windows, Linux, and Unix do not allow this to happen. A SYN flood we can do because I can send out a synchronization bit. You're going to send back a SYN-ACK. I send out another SYN. You send back a SYN-ACK, a SYN, SYN-ACK, SYN, SYN-ACK. Never completing the three-way handshake, I can bring down your system. I can do a permanent denial of service. If I were to send you the wrong operating system, if you've got a router and I send you a switch operating system and you put a switch OS on a router, are we going to crash that router? Is it possible to permanently destroy that router? It's called bricking the system. I've done it myself, so it is possible to do it permanently and unintentionally. High orbit ion cannon. This can be found at sourceforge.com. Now, its little sister is low orbit ion cannon, or LOIC. LOIC has been tasked with bringing down PayPal and MasterCard, using only 3 systems to do so. LOIC and HOIC can launch 1 million hits per second coming out of the boxes that you've got. Very well-written software. If you were to go out and download LOIC or HOIC, there is one entity just right up the road here that's watching you download this. Yes, it's the NSA. They watch to see who has downloaded this. Why? Because people will take this, they'll launch this to bring down somebody's computer system. So when I was at Silicon Valley College, one of my colleagues, Bob, showed up. On Monday morning, he was not in a happy mood. I said, Bob, what's going on? He said, well, over the weekend, I rebuilt my web server. I unplugged the old web server and plugged it into the new one, and somebody had already captured my IP address. He said he called his ISP, and his ISP said, well, we are not statically assigning this. We're not giving you that particular address. You are being assigned this through DHCP dynamically like everybody else. So Bob says, I don't know what to do about getting my address back. I said, Bob, what you need to do is go home at lunch. Call me when you get home. It's like, why? I said, Bob, do not ask questions. Just, we're going to take care of your problem. So he gets home and he calls me and he says, Eric, what's going on? I said, tell me the address that you need taken care of. So he gave me the address. And I said, what I want you to do is start pinging the address. When the ping stops, then unplug that and then plug your system in and you'll get your address back. He's like, what are you doing? I said, don't ask. So I went ahead and I launched low orbit ion cannon against that IP address with 3 different machines. I didn't do this in my department. I was not in the IT department when I did this. I went over to graphics and used their system because I didn't want this coming back to me. This is being recorded. Shut that thing off. I don't care. That was your. It's gone past the relative statute of limitations on this one, so we're good. Although the NSA may be seeing this right now, going, "You're the one." Yeah. So anyway. Bob is at home. He gives me the address. I go ahead and launch 3 machines. The phone rings. He goes, okay, the machine's gone down. I shut down my 3 machines. He plugs his in. He's got his address back. He is ecstatic. He comes back to the office, big smile on his face. He's got that bounce I've always seen him have. He's like, that was great. He goes, how do I repay you? I said, I don't know. He says, my wife and I are going to Hawaii next week. What can I bring you from Hawaii? What does every guy in the world want from Hawaii? A hula girl. So what did he bring me? The little hula girl is now sitting where? The bobblehead that's sitting on my dash, doing this. Yeah. So yeah, I was happy because I now have a bobblehead that reminds me of using LOIC. Don't get caught using it because you can go to jail for that. Hacking, by the way, is illegal. You can go to jail for that. Or if you admit to it on a video. With password cracking, we have a couple ways of cracking passwords, but we're not going to talk about that until we come back from break. So let's go ahead and take a 15-minute break.
You want to start?